I still remember the phone call. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't set loud. There was no argument, just a calm voice explaining that I wasn't set going to Paris. For a second, I thought I misheard it. I had just finished one of the best stretches of basketball in my life. Record crowds, record assists, record attention. Everywhere we played, arenas were packed. People who had never watched women basketball were suddenly watching, and I truly believe that meant something. But when the Olympic roster came out and my name wasn't on it, I realized something important. Talent alone doesn't guarantee timing. That night, I didn't post anything. I didn't react publicly. I didn't throw shade. I smiled in interviews. I said I understood. I said I keep working. But inside, it hurt more than I expected. Not because I doubted the players who made the team. They legends. They earned everything. But because I knew I was ready. I knew I could help. And I knew how much that moment meant. Not just to me, but to every young fan who started watching basketball because of this new wave. For a few days, I let myself feel it, the disappointment, the frustration, the confusion, and then something shifted. If I wasn't going to Paris, then I was going to make sure no one ever questioned my place again. That when the work changed, not louder, not angrier, just sharper. I told my coach they woke something up because rejection can either shrink you or sharpen you. And I chose sharpen. Then the injuries came, and that when everything really got tested, the groin injury didn't feel dramatic at first. It was just a tight pull during a normal drill. I told myself it was nothing. Elite athletes lie to themselves like that all the time. You convince yourself, you refine because slowing down feels worse than pain. But the MRI didn't not lie. Grade 2 strain weeks out, and suddenly the comeback I had built in my head after the Olympic snub wasn't about proving people wrong on a world stage. It was about learning how to walk without wincing. That, when things started compounding and when you protect one part of your body, another part pays the price. My quad tightened from overcompensating. My ankle rolled during what should have been a light return session. Then came the stress reaction in my foot, one injury, then another, and the hardest part wasn't the physical pain. It was the silence. Basketball doesn't stop when you re-hurt. The league moves on, headlines shift, someone else hits the game winner, someone else trends. You still Caitlin Clark, but you re-watching from the sideline. I had never experienced that before, not really. My whole life, basketball had been momentum. One season building into the next, one milestone stacking onto another. Now I was stuck. I'd sit in the training room while my teammates practiced, ice wrapped around my leg, film playing in the background, the gym echoing without me in it, and that's when doubt tries to sneak in. Not loud doubt, not you not good enough. Quieter than that. What if the timing S off? What if you peak too fast? What if the Olympic decision was a sign? Those thoughts don't stay long, but they show up. I had to decide what this season was going to be for me. Was it going to be a lost year? Or was it going to be a laboratory? So I started studying differently. Instead of just watching highlights, I broke down pace. I studied international spacing. I watched how European guards manipulate tempo in FIBA play. I slowed everything down. When you can T-run, you learn to think. When you can 8-jump, you learn angles. When you can compete, you learn patience. And patience was never my strongest trait, but this stretch forced it on me. I worked with trainers on biomechanics. I fixed things I didn't even know were weaknesses. My balance improved. My core got stronger. My offhand became more consistent. I wasn't just rehabbing to return. I was rebuilding to evolve. There's something isolating about injury that nobody talks about enough. People see the walking boot. They see the ice packs. They don't see the hours alone. You used to crowds screaming your name. Now you alone in a gym with just the sound of your own dribble. And weirdly, that where clarity showed up, I realized something important during that time. The Olympic snub didn't define me. The injuries didn't define me. How I responded would. Every morning I wrote the same thing in my notebook. Be undeniable. Not loud, not dramatic, yet undeniable. Because when you become undeniable, politics don't matter, narratives don't matter, timing doesn't matter, performance does. By the time December came around, my body felt different, stronger, balanced, controlled. But more than that, my mind felt dangerous. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was building something bigger. And when Team USA called again about the 2026 cycle, this time I wasn't hoping. I was ready. When I walked into that Team USA camp gym, it didn't feel like redemption. It felt like evaluation. No headlines, no hype, no box office talk, just basketball. And honestly, that exactly what I wanted. The Olympic conversation had turned into noise, people arguing on TV, social media debates, analysts saying I was robbed, others saying I needed to wait my turn. None of that was going to help me make this team. Only this floor would. The first scrimmage started fast. Physical, tight spacing, no easy lanes, international style always feels different. Shorter shot clock, more contact, less room to breathe. And I could feel it immediately. This wasn't tied about scoring 30. This was about control. I grabbed the first defensive rebound and pushed the pace without thinking. That instinct never left me. Tempo is power. When you control tempo, you control the game. Instead of forcing a logo 3, I hit the corner shooter in stride. Easy bucket. Next possession, high pick and roll. Defense hedged hard. I split it and kicked weak side before the rotation could even form. That C when I saw the shift in the gym, eyes changed. Not shock, not doubt, recognition. I wasn't there to prove I could score. Everyone already knew that. I was there to prove I could run the system, and that a difference between being a star and being a leader. In camp, nobody cares about your Instagram followers. Nobody cares about jersey sales. Nobody cares how many arenas you filled. They care about one thing. Can you make the team better? I made it my mission to move without the ball, to defend harder than people expected, to communicate every possession. And here is the part nobody talks about. I wasn't trying to outshine anyone. I was trying to fit, because international basketball isn't built around isolation. It's built around rhythm. And rhythm is something I had studied for months while injured. I knew exactly when to slow it down, when to accelerate, when to attack, when to distribute. By the second day of camp, something else happened. The shot started falling. Logo range transition pull-ups, off-balance step-backs. But the difference, I wasn't hunting them. They were coming naturally inside the flow. That chi-esque growth, a younger version of me might tried to prove something with every possession. This version, I was comfortable letting the game breathe. After one scrimmage, I walked off and locked eyes with the coach who had been part of the Olympic decision. There was no tension, just a nod. And in that nod, I understood something. This wasn't tea about revenge. It was about evolution. Later that evening, a reporter asked me the question they'd been waiting months to ask. Did the Olympic rejection fuel this? I could be gone dramatic. I could leaned into the narrative. Instead, I said the truth. It didn't fuel anger. It fueled discipline, because anger burns fast. Discipline builds legacy. When the roster was officially announced and my name was there for the 2026 World Cup cycle, I didn't scream. I didn't celebrate wildly. I sat quietly for a second, because this wasn't just making a team. This was closing a chapter that had been hanging over me for a year. The June phone call that once felt heavy, it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt necessary, because without it, I don't know if I rebuilt the way I did. And here, as the part people don't realize, making Team USA isn't validation. It's responsibility. Now the pressure shifts. Now, it's not about proving I belong. It's about leading a new era. And when you step into that role, everything changes. Once the roster became official, the conversation changed. It wasn't, should she have made it Tammy more? It became, what does this team look like with her running it? And that is where things get interesting, because Team USA didn't just add me. They adjusted around me. That ego, that A structure, International basketball is different from the WNBA. The spacing is tighter. The game is more physical. Teams zone up more. They force you into half-court decisions. If you don't have a guard who can stretch the defense beyond the arc, the whole system shrinks. I stretch the floor before I even touch the ball. That changes everything. Bigs get cleaner rolls. Wings get open, corners. Transition becomes lethal. When I push tempo off a rebound, defenses panic. They not just guarding the ball, they re-guarding possibility. That gravity is something you can teach, and that why this version of Team USA feels different. We not build around post dominance anymore. We rebuild around pace and space. Paige brings shot creation. Boston brings interior presence. Plum brings perimeter scoring. But the engine, it has rhythm, and rhythm starts with decision making. One of the biggest shifts in camp was communication. Instead of calling static sets every possession, we flowed into actions, drag screens in transition, early flare screens, Spain pick and roll variations. This isn't old school slow grind basketball. This is modern read and react basketball. And I studied that while I was injured. That too, the part nobody sees. While people debated online about politics and snubs, I was breaking down FIBA defensive rotations, watching how Spain traps high ball screens, watching how France switches late to bait skip passes. I wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I was preparing. So when camp started, I wasn't surprised by the physicality. I expected it. Now let Ez talk about something people keep whispering about. Reactions. Angel is on the roster, but this system demands adaptability. If you can run the four, defend multiple positions, and finish in space, ULL. If you need isolation touches to dominate it harder. That HU, not personal, that S fit. And international basketball punishes bad fit quickly. Then there A's the conversation about A, J not being on this specific qualifying roster. Every cycle has shifts. This one clearly signals a generational pivot. USA basketball is thinking long-term now. Faster lineups, more perimeter play, higher scoring tempo. And whether people want to admit it or not, that aligns with how I play. But let me be clear about something. This isn't about replacing legends. It's about evolving the identity. Every era changes. The 2008 Redeem team changed USA men and basketball. This could be that moment for women basketball, not just dominant, entertaining, watchable, global. When March 11th hits in Puerto Rico and we tip off that first qualifying game, people aren't just tuning in for wins. They retuning in for style. They retuning in for tempo. They retuning in because they expect something different. And that expectation, that pressure, but pressure doesn't scare me anymore. Because I've already experienced being left out. There, nothing louder than silence after you. Even told you, you're not ready. Once you survive that, nothing else feels overwhelming. Now the focus shifts to execution, because making the team was step one. Winning the world stage. That the real statement, and trust me, I haven't forgotten how last summer felt. Not in anger, in focus. People think the story ends with making the roster. It doesn't. Just the headline. The real story is what this moment represents. Because this isn't just about me finally wearing USA across my chest. It's about what changed inside me between that Olympic rejection and this announcement. And when I got left off in 2024, I could have reacted emotionally. I could have posted something. I could have complained. I could have fed the narrative. And instead, I chose silence, not weakness, control, because I understood something most people miss. When you argue publicly, you give power away. When you respond through performance, you take it back. That summer, I wasn't trying to prove fans right. I was trying to prove myself unstoppable. And injuries slowed that process, but they didn't stop it. Now, fast forward to this Team USA announcement. The tone is completely different. There, no debate. No controversy, no wait your turn energy. It's clarity, that DA drove. And here, as the truth nobody wants to say out loud, the Olympic snub might have been the best thing that ever happened to me because it forced me to separate hype from identity. When you're suddenly everywhere, commercials, headlines, sold out arenas, it's easy to start believing your momentum is permanent. Injuries humble you, rejection humbles you, and humility sharpens you. When I walked into this camp, I didn't feel like a celebrity. I felt like a competitor, and that difference matters. Now let us address the outside noise. People are already framing this as redemption. Some are calling it a takeover, others are turning it into rivalry drama. But inside that gym, none of that exists. What exists is execution. The ball doesn't care about storylines. The rim doesn't care about narratives. It responds to preparation, and I am prepared to lead vocally when needed, prepared to defer when necessary, prepared to take the shot if it see as there. That maturity, and I didn't have this exact version of maturity 2 years ago. I had confidence. Now I have perspective. There a difference. Confidence says I belong here. Perspective says now that I'm here, how do I elevate everyone? That by what international basketball demands. It's not about being the highest scorer. It about being a system. And this Team USA roster feels built for that philosophy. When we run in transition, that's not chaos. It's calculated speed. When we space the floor, it's not random movement. It's precision geometry that tastes the evolution. And yes, people are watching reactions. They reanalyzing the social media likes. They rereading in the body language clips that modern sports culture. But inside this team, we refocus on one thing, merch. Because qualifying isn't optional and dominance isn't assumed. You earn it. And I remember what it felt like watching from home. That image stayed with me. This time I am not watching. This time I am playing, not for validation, for fulfillment. That's the difference. And when we step onto that floor in Puerto Rico, understand something. You not watching a comeback story. You rewatching a recalibrated version of me. Stronger, smarter, more disciplined, and far more dangerous than before. If the Olympic snub woke a monster, the injuries refined it. Now the world stage gets to see it, hear what nobody understands unless they lived it. Making Team USA isn't the finish line. It's the responsibility line. When they called my name this time, I didn't feel relief. I felt weight, not pressure, weight, because wearing USA across your chest means you not representing yourself anymore. You re-representing every girl in a driveway shooting a cracked rim, every fan who bought a ticket because they believed this game was finally growing, every critic who said you weren't ready. This is about proving people wrong anymore. It's about proving something bigger, right? Women basketball doesn't need protection. It needs performance. And I've learned something over the past 2 years. The loudest moments of your career, one, define you. The quiet ones will, the early morning rehab sessions when nobody filming, the film study when nobody praising, the weight room when nobody tweeting. That too, where this version of me was built. So when people ask what I said after officially making Team USA here, and the honest answer, I didn't say much. I smiled because the work already spoke. I thought about that Olympic call in 2024. I thought about sitting there pretending it didn't hurt. I thought about walking off the court injured, wondering if momentum ever truly comes back. And then I realized something powerful. Momentum doesn't disappear. It waits for discipline to catch up to it. That what this moment is, not revenge, not politics, not rivalry headlines, alignment. My body aligned, my mindset aligned, the opportunity aligned. And when alignment happens, you don't chase noise. You chase excellence. The World Cup qualifiers in Puerto Rico aren't just 5 games on a schedule. They re-5 statements. Statement that resilience beats rejection. Statement that growth beats ego. Statement that the future doesn't wait for permission. You can debate roster politics all you want. You can argue who deserved what in 2024. But here, the truth I've easy VM. Every no prepared me for this yes. If I had made that Olympic team, maybe I never slow down enough to rebuild correctly. Maybe I never study the game deeper. Maybe I never refined the edges that needed sharpening. Sometimes exclusion is instruction, and I listened. So when I step on that court with USA across my chest, understand this, you not seeing someone who got lucky. You re-seen someone who adapted, someone who got knocked down by injuries, by rejection, by doubt, and used all of it as fuel. And if there, as one thing they learned through this entire journey, it's as the spotlight doesn't make you strong. Adversity does. The spotlight just reveals it. This is not a redemption tour. This is evolution. And evolution is permanent. So when the ball tips in Puerto Rico, when the pace quickens, when the defense collapses and the shot clock ticks, just know I'm not playing to be accepted anymore. I am playing to lead. And this time, I am exactly where I am supposed to be. Let me know how you feel about this new chapter, because the next era of Team USA basketball starts now.